In 2018, while I was incarcerated at the Okaloosa County Jail, his breath caught. The entry spiraled into disjointed ramblings, references to biblical passages, ominous warnings, rants about government spies, and hidden messages in music lyrics. Think grave robbery, Little Mrs. Wolf, JB and Company, wicked schemes. Phil's skin prickled with unease. Whoever had written those scattered notes out on the trail had been here. Not just recently. That same day, a rustling outside snapped his attention away from the book. His flashlight flickered as he pointed it toward the dark trees beyond the shelter. Nothing. Then he noticed it. A half-empty Gatorade bottle dangled from a string on the ceiling of the shelter. Attached to it was a note. Same handwriting. Watch out for Yeet Mouse. The dead do walk and talk. Phil swallowed hard. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to leave. The man in the dark. Still, he forced himself to settle into his tent, the fire crackling just outside. But sleep never came. His ears strained for any sound, every snapped twig sending a fresh wave of paranoia through him. And then footsteps, slow, deliberate, approaching the shelter. Phil's pulse pounded. He reached for his flashlight and carefully unzipped the tent just enough to see outside. A lone figure stood in the darkness. A headlamp flickered from the man's forehead, casting strange, shifting shadows across his face. Phil didn't move. He didn't breathe. The man stood motionless for a long moment. Then, as if sensing he was being watched, he took a single, deliberate step toward the shelter. Phil didn't wait. He scrambled to grab his gear, moving as silently as possible, every instinct screaming at him to go now. With his heart hammering in his chest, he slipped from the tent, keeping to the shadows as he made his way back to the trail. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. By the time he reached his truck, his hands were shaking. He locked the doors, started the engine, and drove away, checking the rearview mirror the entire way home. Phil never returned to that section of the Appalachian Trail, and to this day, no one knows who the man was, or what he would have done if Phil hadn't left when he did. The summer was fading, the once scorching days beginning to cool as autumn lurked just around the corner. My wife and I decided to take one last camping trip before the chill set in. One last adventure before we packed away the gear for the season. I had a trove of camping supplies left over from my college days. Relics from a time when my friends and I would trek deep into the wilderness, searching for undiscovered spots away from the crowds. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to relive those days, this time with my wife by my side. There was one particular spot I had in mind. A hidden gem far from designated campsites. So isolated, so deeply tucked into the forest that it felt like stepping into another world. I had been there before, years ago, and I was excited to show it to her. The drive was long, weaving through rural roads until we finally reached the dense tree line. The familiar sense of excitement tinged with unease settled over me as we pulled in. As soon as we arrived, something felt off. The site wasn't as untouched as I remembered. There was a crude fire pit, littered with ashes and half-burnt wood. Crumpled snack wrappers were scattered across the ground, along with the remnants of someone else's presence. It was clearly the humans who had found the spot. But what was unnerving was how hastily everything seemed abandoned, as if whoever had been there left in a hurry. Still, we shrugged it off and set up camp. The tent went up with ease. The fire crackled warmly, and soon we were settled into our chairs, sipping drinks and talking as the sky deepened into an inky blackness. The forest around us was eerily quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Then, at around 2 a.m., the night was shattered. The growl of a chainsaw suddenly erupted in the distance. The sound was deafening, unnatural against the hushed stillness of the forest. It roared to life somewhere in the darkness, its mechanical snarl reverberating through the trees. My wife and I exchanged a wide-eyed look, frozen in place. Our initial thought, our desperate attempt at logic,